Hi, I'm Andy Burcham, voice of the Auburn Tigers, and you're listening to the Phillip Jordan Show podcast.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. I'm your host, Phillip Jordan, in studio host and producer of Dustin Woods Football on 96.9 The Legend, and also cover Auburn Tigers over at the Auburn Wire, part of USA Today. We're going to have a fun show playing for you guys today. Andy Burcham, voice of the Auburn Tigers, will be joining me momentarily. We're going to hit on a lot of topics with Andy, but we'll talk about postseason excitement that was generated from the Auburn basketball teams and baseball team. Of course, basketball team made it to the Final Four. Baseball team getting to the Super Regional. First time Auburn ever hosted a Super Regional. We'll open up with that, but then we'll jump into the football talk. What excites Andy about this team? We'll go the offense and the defense, and also preview their opener against the Baylor Bears there on the 29th of August on a Friday night. Also on here, we will talk a little bit of the AP, not top 25. I want to kind of focus in on the top 10. And then also we'll do some Q&A, social media, football questions, and they were all NFL related. So we'll jump into all of that and more here on this edition of the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. You check out the Phillip Jordan Show podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you're just a straight-up hater. You can also check out the show over at YouTube at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and bell for all notifications. Please leave a comment on the video, and I'll read it on a future edition of the show. You can follow me on social media at pjordansports. You can also email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. All right, as I said off the top, we're going to talk about the AP poll real quickly before I play you my conversation with Andy Burcham. And really, to no surprise, Texas gets the number 1 spot in the first AP poll of the season. They come in, they get 25 votes there in the top 25. Then you've got Penn State behind them with Ohio State at 3, Clemson 4, Georgia 5, Notre Dame 6, Oregon 7, Alabama 8, LSU 9, and Miami 10. And when I look at the top 10, like I said, I'm going to just focus on the top 10 for right now. Maybe next week we'll kind of jump into some more of what it looked like. Quarterback is very interesting when you look at this top 10 because there's questions about around a lot of these teams in their quarterback situation. Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon, Alabama, and maybe even Miami to a degree on the quarterback situation there. So let's all start off. And if you're watching on YouTube, I have the AP top 10 up on the screen. Texas, number 1. Of course, we know Arch Manning coming in. We've seen him play. He's played well when he's come in, but now you are the guy. Now, all those expectations, you're the Texas quarterback. People are expecting a national championship. Obviously, you're ranked number 1 in the country, and also your last name, your uncles, your grandfather. A lot of expectations are being placed on your shoulders. And look, 4 new offensive linemen for this team. I wonder they're going to have to lean on the defense and Quintravian Wisner as well. They have Wingo coming back, but that's the big thing with the Texas team. Can Arch Manning live up to expectations? What's going to be a reaction when he plays poorly? And we'll find out really early when they play Ohio State in the opener where he's going to be at. If he takes a loss or two, they have a matchup with Georgia. If they get beat by Georgia, that's also going to be an overall Texas team. Okay, you can't beat Georgia. So that's the thing with Texas. That's their questions there. Just Arch, is he ready for this moment to take over this big moment? Penn State at quarterback, they're solid. Drew Aller coming back. I like to see him be more of a risky quarterback. He's very safe with football, but then you say that he got risky in the playoff, semifinals, 2 interception that led to Notre Dame taking the win there in the semifinals. But one thing of the criticism about Penn State, too, around Drew Aller, didn't have receivers last year. Tight end Tyler Warren had 104 catches on the team. The rest of the receivers had 102. Now they bring in Kyron Hudson from USC. They bring in Trevor Pena from Syracuse, and of course Devontae Ross from Troy, right up the road from me. Just a playmaker of a player. So they put in more talent around Drew Aller. You've got a lot of pieces coming back. Jim Knowles coming over from Ohio State now will be the defensive coordinator. This team has all the makings of a team that could win or compete for a national championship. This has got to be the year for James Franklin. If they don't do it this year, when are they going to do it? Now, Ohio State, they're going to be breaking a new quarterback. Will Howard is now off the NFL, backing up Aaron Rodgers. So Julian Sayin taking over. Of course, this was a quarterback that was a 5-star coming out of high school in early of 24, January 10th, 24. He signed. He committed to Alabama, transferred out. He is now at Ohio State. Obviously, he has the best wide receiver in college football, Jeremiah Smith, on the outside. So, and there's talent all around him. Now, the running game, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, they're not there anymore. Ohio State figuring that out. Defensively, will be good. And, just a different philosophy. Chip Kelly's not there anymore. Hartline is being the play caller. So how will he handle that? And that's a question. Ohio State is super talented. We know this. But it's another case with him. He's unproven. Talented, we know, but he's unproven for the Buckeyes if they're going to another one. And for Penn State, let's just say it like it is. They've got to beat the big teams, and they have not done that so far under James Franklin. Kind of going back to them. And it's kind of like we said with Penn State, they're good at quarterback or solid. We know what they have. Same things for Clemson with Cade Klubnik. 43 touchdowns last year, 36 through the air, 7 on the ground. This is a guy that's looking like a first-round pick in the NFL draft. He returns wide receiver Antonio Williams. It looks like this team has kind of turned the page. They played really well against Texas last year in the playoff game. And Clemson, they should be the heavy favorite in the ACC, but they're solid at that position. Now he gets to Georgia at 5. Look at them. Gunnar Stockton coming in. And that's the biggest question with this team. Georgia has receivers. They went in the portal and added that. Nate Frazier at running back. They've got returning receivers, Dylan Bell and Colby Young. Look, the defense may not be littered as talented with surefire NFL guys as they've been in previous years under Kirby, but we know defensively they're going to be really good. They're just going to be well coached. A lot of teams, people just automatically put Texas as number 1 in the SEC. Georgia's going to have the chip on the shoulder, so it all comes down to Gunnar Stockton. And he does not have to be a superstar quarterback. Stetson Bennett really wasn't. He just did what he was told. He did what his job was. He got the ball to the right people, and that's what he's going to have to do here. But will he be the reason why Georgia doesn't win a championship? I have my doubts about Stockton. I just want to see him actually go out there and win a game for Georgia, and he's going to have to do that in the SEC. Notre Dame, of course, going from Riley Leonard to C.J. Carr. How's this? Notre Dame's a team, look, if they're in the playoff, doesn't shock me just because Notre Dame scheduling and all that stuff. I think they're going to take a step back. That's just my thoughts on them. Oregon, Dylan Gabriel off the NFL, one of the 500 quarterbacks for the Cleveland Browns. Dante Moore taking over at quarterback. He was at UCLA. Now he's coming in to take this opportunity here. Oregon's been big on transfer quarterbacks. Will he be the next one in line? Seemed like in the past, we knew Bo Nix was talented, bad fit, bad system with Gus Malzahn, had to get away from Brian Harsin. And then Dylan Gabriel was just good wherever he went. Central Florida, Oklahoma, and then Oregon. So now what is Dante Moore going to be that next guy on that list? Alabama just named Ty Simpson to start the quarterback this week. No shock, just when you hear what Ryan Grubb, he is the most experienced quarterback, and he doesn't have a lot of it. Now, he's got so much talent around him. They're going to be good on the offensive line. Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton out on the outside, a wide receiver. They've got the running backs. The defense is going to be great. I think Alabama could have the best defense in the SEC this year. Alabama is a contender. If Ty Simpson is a good quarterback and he just delivers the ball where he's supposed to be, it's this is the thing. I said the same thing with Gunnar Stockton. I'll say the same thing with other quarterbacks as well. But with Ty Simpson, just with what Alabama has, and Kalen DeBoer kind of, I wouldn't say changing, but adjusting some of the things he did coaching wise last season. Alabama is a title contender. They're at 8, but this is a dangerous team if Ty Simpson lives up to potential. This is a guy that we've been hearing about for years and years, how good he is, how talented of a quarterback he is. It's time to show it. And if he reaches that potential, Alabama's going to be dangerous. He reminds me a lot of Mac Jones. Waited his time, waited his turn. He easily could have left. He could have transferred and went somewhere else. And I think in this day and age of college football, nobody would have blamed him, but he stuck it out. Now he's getting that opportunity to be the quarterback for Crimson Tide. LSU, we know what they are. Garrett Nussmeier. I think the question with LSU is really not all going to be offense, defensively. LSU is going to put up points with Garrett Nussmeier. They got the receivers, they got the running backs, but defense, especially in that secondary, can they stop teams? That's what's going to hold this team back if they don't make it to the postseason. Is once again under Brian Kelly, the defense falters. Then number 10, you do have Miami. Cam Ward, now with the Tennessee Titans. Enter Carson Beck, former Georgia quarterback. Just which Carson Beck are we getting? Are we getting the version that we saw last year? I think it was a little full of himself. And I kind of wonder if the Georgia people were just kind of ready to get him out of there, because it's not like they tried to keep him. Not hard anyways. I mean, if they really wanted him back, they would have paid to keep him there. That's just my opinion. I don't have any inside information. That's just how I feel about the situation. So what version of Carson Beck are we getting? Are we getting the 2024 version of Carson Beck that was up and down, interceptions, just did not live up to the quarterback we thought it was going to be a first-round draft pick, versus the 23 guy that was really good toward the end of the year, showed a lot of moxie at Jordan Hare, his first-year starter, bringing him back, hitting Brock Bowers with the big plays at the end. It's just for Miami. If they get the Carson Beck that we thought we were all going to see last year, this team's going to give Clemson a run for the money in the ACC. If not, it could go the other direction. Miami has to fill of a team. They're either going to be great or they're going to be really bad. If they're somewhere in the middle, I think this team is probably going to check out. All right, that's my thoughts just on the top 10 overall, especially when it comes to the quarterback situation for all these teams. I mean, you have pretty much Penn State, Clemson, and then LSU is what we really know for a fact, as much as we can, what their quarterback situation is. The rest of these teams, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to go down with all of them. All right. Now I am going to play my conversation with the voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham. Everybody joining me this week on the podcast is the voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham. Also, check out his podcast, the Talking Tigers podcast, this week. He's got Ronnie Baines, lettered in football and baseball at Auburn. Part 2 is up this week. And, Andy, I appreciate you coming on.
Good to be with you today, Phillip. Gearing up for the start of the 2025 season.
Yeah, we're recording this on Tuesday, so we're about 17 days away from the season. It's getting here closer and closer. Can't wait for the season to get here. But how's the summer been for you? Since baseball season ended in the Super Regional and then heading into the prep for football season?
Yeah, the month of July is the month that I travel. If I'm going to travel recreationally, we're going to do it in the month of July, and we spent some time away, and probably not enough time at this point, but back at it, and school's about to begin on Monday here on the Auburn campus. The Auburn city schools have already started their campaign, and football season obviously continuing, getting ready for another scrimmage this weekend, and then they'll have one final scrimmage before the opener on the 29th at Baylor.
You talking about going to the summer. And before we jumped into football, basketball and baseball, a fun winter / springtime. There were both the basketball and the baseball programs. The Final Four with basketball, the Super Regional, first time Auburn hosting a Super Regional. Just it had to be a fun time there for you there in those months there with baseball and basketball.
Yeah, it really was. You look at that Final Four team, and it's Auburn's second ever. And to do it the way Auburn did, going through Lexington and winning against Alabama State, and then coming from behind to beat Creighton, and then Auburn goes to Atlanta, and that was really an Auburn home crowd for both games, and came from behind to beat Michigan, and then won the game dramatically against Michigan State to go to the Final Four before falling to Florida, the eventual national champ. down in San Antonio, then turned attention fully to baseball at that point. Another terrific season for Butch Thompson, another regional championship. And as you mentioned, Phillip, Auburn hosted that first ever super regional, and the season ended on a disappointing note against a really good team that finished second in the country in Coastal Carolina. I don't want to take anything away from what the Chanticleers did this season, but it ended, Auburn had a mission to get to Omaha this season and didn't get there yet. Auburn returns a huge nucleus from that regional championship season. And there will be a great amount of buzz for Auburn baseball when things continue in February. For basketball, it'll be totally different. I mean, you had 10 seniors on that team, including the SEC Player of the Year, and at least in one of the publications, the National Player of the Year in Janai Broom, who will be with the 76ers this season, and just an incredibly fun team. In a day and age where you don't see many seniors, that team had 10.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good for that team, but it means it's almost a brand new team for 25-26 with Tahad Pettifer coming back as a sophomore, as a true sophomore, and then it is a completely new roster. So I think this team has a great deal of talent heading into this season. I think it will be a very different team with regard to its style of play. I think you'll see much more of an up-tempo team with Auburn basketball this year, but certainly looking forward to a season that will be with such a dramatically different roster going into this season.
Yeah, with Tahad coming back, you got to think with Bruce Pearl's got thinking last year, wow, I got all these seniors, but the following year, I got to completely rebuild the roster. And I think that's going to be, for basketball, that's going to be an exciting part, I think, for the Auburn fans to check the team out, because there's going to be a developmental, a building of that team together, and then what they can be toward later in the year in March is kind of an exciting thing to follow with that team.
I think this team will be much better, as you mentioned, by March than it is at the start of the season. The rub on that is that, last year's schedule was the toughest that Auburn's ever had. Well, this year's schedule isn't a whole lot easier.
Mm-mm.
You still have Houston. Granted, that game will be in Birmingham, and that game has just been announced. Auburn will play Purdue in Indianapolis. Both of those teams likely will be top 5 teams when the season begins. Auburn will play Virginia Tech in the SEC ACC Challenge. There's still the game to be announced in Atlanta. So all of those games take place before a Southeastern Conference season begins, where a couple of those teams will probably be top 10 teams, maybe 3 teams will be top 10 teams. And in true Auburn fashion, there's not a lot of attention going to Auburn right now. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think Auburn is best when it is off the radar a bit. And I will be shocked if this Auburn basketball team isn't dramatically better by the time the NCAA tournament starts in March than it is when the season begins with its exhibition games in October.
Yeah, absolutely. And, turning the page, obviously, the football, as we mentioned top, just a little over 2 weeks away when they go and play Baylor on that Friday night. I'm just glad the high school team I cover, Andy, is playing on Thursday that week. So I'll be able to watch the game on TV and won't be sneaking my iPad in the studio as I'm, producing the high school game. But what excites you about this football team coming up for this year?
Well, one, I think the talent is better. I think the talent across the board is better than it was a year ago. I think it's better up front offensively. I think this is as good an offensive line potentially as Auburn's had in quite some time. The wide receiver room is incredibly talented. And when you add an Eric Singleton to the likes of Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons and Perry Thompson and Bryce Kane and those guys coming back, that's a fabulous part to this puzzle. I wouldn't even say it's a question mark for me offensively for Auburn, but who is the 1 or 2 guys that emerge out of the tailback room for Auburn? The most logical decision or the most logical choice is Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb, because they're the experienced tailbacks at Auburn. But you added Darrell Robinson, who comes in from UConn, wasn't able to practice in the spring because of an injury, but has looked good in preseason camp. And then you've got Omar Mabson II, who's from Auburn, who from an age standpoint could be playing his senior year at Auburn High School, but declared early and is on campus. And you've got Alvin Henderson, who's the all-time leading rusher in the state of Alabama history. That's your tailback room. But, it's not, in years past, you've had Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter, and you carry on and Boobie Whitley. You've had a guy you knew going into the season, and that's a little bit different for Auburn this season. So that takes a look at the Auburn offense. Defensively, at the edge, defensively with Keldric Faulk and Kieron Crawford, Auburn is loaded there. I think Auburn will be we will watch the linebackers develop, and we can say the same thing about the defensive front, nose tackle and defensive tackle for Auburn. I think some people are sleeping on Auburn's secondary. I think this secondary is better than many believe, or many are giving them credit this season. And then to the special teams, Phillip, you take a look, and Alex McPherson is back after a year away. That shores up Auburn from a place kicking standpoint. Hudson Cock comes into Auburn, a transfer from Oklahoma State. Like so many of late, he hails from Australia. And I think Auburn is going to be very, very good in the special teams. And they have a new special teams coordinator this year in Chad Lunsford. And frankly, that's an area that needs to improve from a year ago. And I'm not just talking about kicking. I'm talking about the entire package on special teams. And I think Auburn has the potential to do just that this season.
And obviously I think a lot of Auburn fans are just people looking at the quarterback, Jackson Arnold. What's he bring? Obviously coming out of high school, he signed Oklahoma. He was a 5-star, top player in Texas. And you can talk all the receivers that is around him. What have been your takeaways from Jackson Arnold so far?
Well, one, I think it's good that he was here in the spring, and he's been in the program now since January. I think that's just a must for a guy like a Jackson Arnold that is the number one quarterback. He's QB1 for Auburn this season. And he has all the tools. I mean, as you mentioned, this guy was the Gatorade National Player of the Year coming out of Denton Geyer High School in Texas. And it didn't work out for him so well at Oklahoma. And Auburn looking for a replacement to Peyton Thorne. He has the running ability that you need to run or to have in this Hugh Freeze offense, Derek Nix offense. He can throw the ball. He has good size. He has everything needed to excel at quarterback. And listen, a year ago, Oklahoma, especially at wide receiver, was just decimated by injury. Well, he has a tremendous room in the wide receiver room to work with this season. I think he also has the benefit of having a better offensive line than Auburn had a year ago. I'm not going to say they're a better offensive line than Oklahoma, but they're a better offensive line than what Auburn put on the field a year ago, especially with Mason Murphy and Xavier Chaplin at the tackles. And then the middle three guys with Jeremiah Wright and Connor Lew and Dylan Wade in the middle three. And Dylan Wade has played everywhere on that offensive line. He's best, though, at guard for Auburn. And I like the way this offensive line sets up for the Tigers. And for Auburn to excel from an offensive standpoint, to be consistently good offensively, that offensive line needs to play as advertised. That wide receiver room needs to play as advertised. Auburn has to get some help at the tight end spot, and Brandon Frazier is back after a year away. Suffered the broken foot in the New Mexico game early last season, and he is the experience for Auburn at the tight end spot. And then, offensively in the running back room, who's the guy? Who is the guy, or who are the guys for Auburn? I think everything is in place for Auburn to take a major step forward offensively, and it has to do that. I believe it has to do that this season.
And talking about the receivers, and I was looking at it, and I'm going to take my age a little bit for some of the audience out there. 38. So I remember the 04 receiving core: Ben Overmanu, Devin Rumishadu, Courtney Taylor, and then even Anthony Mix.
Yeah.
Just as me as someone's been, watching this for last year, I view this room as the best Auburn's had since then. I mean, what do you think about that?
I agree with you. And that's the one that I refer back to with Devin Aroma-Shadu and Ben Obamanu. And, Coach Tuberville never did pronounce their names correctly in the 4 years that they played at Auburn. He never did get it right, but they could play.
Mm-hmm.
And Courtney Taylor and Anthony Mix. And I think there are better numbers with this wide receiver room. I'm not going to say that, but you've got a Cam Coleman, obviously, who garners a great deal of the attention, and rightly so, with 8 touchdowns and almost 600 yards in a freshman year where he just got better and better as the year went on. Perry Thompson is a multi-faceted weapon for Auburn. Malcolm Simmons is back after a really good season with Auburn. I think Bryce Kane in the slot takes a step forward for Auburn. He didn't get a ton of playing time for Auburn a year ago. I think he's one of those guys to watch out for. And then Eric Singleton, who was terrific a year ago at Georgia Tech with outstanding sprinter speed, over 750 yards, and was just, a freshman All-American at Georgia Tech, the top-ranked wide receiver in the transfer portal, and he comes to Auburn. And, even with the offense that Auburn had a year ago, look what Keandre Lambert-Smith did.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's trying to make, and I think is going to do a good job of making the San Diego Chargers, or the LA Chargers, this year. So, and, we're not even talking about guys like Cameron King, who just was put on scholarship, or Eric Smith or Duke Smith or Sam Taylor or Horatio Fields.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I think this 04 team, this 25 team has even more depth than that 04 team, which was as good as Auburn's had, obviously, in the last 25 years.
Yeah, and Singleton's very impressed because he's the type of guy that can take the top off, of the defense. And then Cam Coleman
he's not the only one. Auburn has the ability with a couple of these guys to take the top off the offense. But you're right in the fact that Singleton can. Bryce Kane has that kind of speed as well. He's just a guy that didn't get a lot of reps a year ago. I think he's a guy that takes a major step forward for the Tigers this year.
Defense, you can't talk about Auburn defense without talking about Keldric Faulk. And just, obviously everybody looks at the mock drafts that already has where he could go next year in the NFL draft. But looking at what have you seen him through the spring and what you seen in the summer, where he can take his game to that next level?
Well, for one, he's bigger. He's bigger and stronger than he was a year ago. You take a look, he's 6'6", 285. And that's a chiseled 6'6", 285. He has been a star for Auburn since his true freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after this year, and this is I'm not the only one saying it, or the first one saying it, I think he's a first-round draft choice after his junior year at Auburn. If he continues to excel as he has in his first 2 seasons, I think he's Auburn's next first-round draft choice. I think it will be Keldric Faulk. Behind him, Amaris Williams is a guy as a sophomore out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, that showed flashes for Auburn a year ago. He needs to become consistent behind Keldric Faulk. On the other side, Kieron Crawford, a senior and a transfer from Arkansas State. I love what he brings to Auburn at 6'4", 255 at that buck or linebacker spot for Auburn. But who is the depth behind Kieron Crawford? Is it Chris Murray? Is it Jamonta Waller? Is it J.J. Faulk? Is it Keldric's brother, who's made the official move from linebacker to that buck spot on the other side? So while I really like Kieron Crawford on one side and Keldric Faulk on the other, that depth has to develop behind those guys on the ends. But I really like Auburn's ability to get after a quarterback, especially with Faulk and Kieron Crawford.
Yeah, and you look at that experienced secondary. If you can call some pressure on quarterback, they're going to make a quick decision. Usually it could be a bad one, and then that sets stuff up for that secondary to really make some plays for that defense.
Well, you look at the secondary, and a lot of these guys were freshmen and sophomores a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
But that group played some important minutes for Auburn a year ago because they were the best players Auburn had, and some as a result of injuries. Champ Anthony was playing his best football at Auburn when he suffered that broken leg in the Arkansas game in September of a year ago. Well, he is back. And as a result, we watched Can Lee continue to develop. We watched Jay Crawford continue to develop. And those guys now are I think those are your starting cornerbacks for Auburn if everything were to start today. Rayshon Pleasant transfers in from Tulane. And while he garners a great deal of attention as a return specialist, he is going to get time at the cornerback spot. Rayon Strader is another transfer from Auburn, or for Auburn, that transferred in. He's originally out of Pittsburgh, transferred in from Miami of Ohio, and they like what he has done at the cornerback spot. Safeties, I think, are really solid for Auburn, and it's a couple sophomores. These two guys were your freshman safeties a year ago.
Yeah.
And Caleb Harris and Sylvester Smith. And then Champ Anthony, I think, will get a lot of playing time at the star or that nickel position for Auburn. But Jaquez Hunter comes in, transferred from Colorado after playing in Alabama. They like what he has done at safety in the preseason. Jacoby Matthews is another guy there. Anquan Fagans, I should say. So there is depth this season, and it's not just freshmen and sophomores that are playing the important minutes this year. It's sophomores and juniors that are playing those important minutes after playing those important minutes a year ago.
And lastly, the matchup with Baylor, the opener going out there on the 29th, Friday night, be on Fox, prime time, the nation will be watching. And with that Baylor team, they ended the season hot, winning their last 6 regular season games before losing LSU in the bowl game. And they returned a lot of offensive firepower back. Their quarterback, Sawyer Robinson, that threw over 3,000 yards. Their top 2 receivers, their top running back, their second running back is going to be out for that game. But
right.
What are some, as we're sitting here, like I said, a little over 2 weeks before the game, just some things you were noticing with the Baylor team, just some things that are sticking out to you for the matchup?
That Baylor team a year ago was the 4th best offense in the Big 12. And as you mentioned, they returned some key pieces, especially at quarterback, their top tailback, their number 1 tight end, their number 1 and 2 receivers are all back from a year ago. Where they have to, the interesting matchup to me will be the Baylor offense against the Auburn defense. But I think an even more fascinating matchup is Auburn's offense against the Baylor defense. And Baylor gave up a ton of yards and points a year ago. Can that Auburn offense take advantage of that this year? I think this game potentially could be a high-scoring game. I think Baylor wants it to be a high-scoring game. It will be a Friday night, as you mentioned, which I can't remember the last time Auburn played on a Friday night. I have no idea when the last time Auburn played on a Friday night. The game will be, of course, in Baylor and in Waco. And it is a sellout. You would never know from the buzz around this game that neither of these teams are ranked in the top 25. They've received votes in the AP poll that came out on Monday, but neither team is in the top 25. I don't think it matters to either team that they're not in the top 25 right now. I think this is a fascinating first game for Auburn. It's the first time Auburn has opened up in a true road game in a long, long time. It's opened the season with several neutral site games, including 2019 when it beat Oregon down in Arlington, Texas. But think about Jackson Arnold and what he has before Auburn turns the calendar from September to October. He goes back to his home state from Denton, Texas, and Geyer High School in his first game as an Auburn quarterback. And before the month of September is out, he returns to Oklahoma, where he came from, to play in front of the fans in Norman. So what goes through that young man's mind as he gets ready for the first month plus a game in his Auburn career? Some fascinating storylines going into that ball game and this season coming up.
Yeah, when I look at Auburn's schedule, obviously the opener is interesting, but that Oklahoma, at Texas, and A&M back-to-back is a very interesting stretch to me for Auburn, especially for him, because I just thought, okay, well, Auburn wins at Oklahoma. Obviously, for him, that's going to be a big, thing for him. And then coming back, and then you got to turn around and play at Texas A&M, 2 back-to-back tough road matches in the SEC.
Well, after Auburn plays the Baylor game, it comes home against Ball State and South Alabama. And then it starts with Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Then you have an off week. Then it's Georgia. And you don't play another non-conference game until the Iron Bowl preview or the game prior to the Iron Bowl in Mercer in November. That stretch from mid-September to mid-November is Auburn's proving ground because it's the SEC each and every week with 2 off weeks in there. But the schedule itself, you know, a year ago, we were all talking about it's 5 straight home games to start the season. That this year, the attention to me is what happens from Oklahoma until you get to that Mercer ball game in November. By the time we get there, we know about this Auburn ball club. And there are tough road games, as you mentioned, Oklahoma, A&M. You go to Arkansas. You go to Vanderbilt, which beat Auburn here a year ago. You still have Georgia at home. You have Kentucky at home. You still have Alabama at home. So I think this is just going to be a fascinating season for Auburn week in and week out. And it all starts, of course, on the 29th at Baylor.
Yeah, and I'm sure the whole Hugh Freeze himself individually and staff, I'm sure they won't say it, but they will be wanting to get the Diago Pavia nonsense off of them with that game before Mercer. But it's going to be a fun season for Auburn. And it's been a lot of fun having you on the show. I appreciate
Thank you, Phillip.
Taking the time as we get close to the season. Anything, let people know where they can find you, they can find the podcast.
Yeah, I'm at A Burcham 04 on X and Instagram. As you mentioned, this week's Talking Tigers podcast is our part 2 with Ronnie Baines, who played both football and baseball at Auburn, went on to a fabulous career as a high school, then an SEC, and then an NFL official, worked 2 Super Bowls, still works in an advisory role with the Southeastern Conference, but just fascinating to get to know Ronnie. Coming up on Monday, get to know Brett Edens, who is joining us on the Auburn Sports Network this year as one of our sideline reporters. In the weeks to come, we talk recruiting. We talk NIL with Will Redmond, who's Auburn's general manager for football, and Kenyatta Watson, the general manager for recruiting for Auburn football. That comes up in a couple of weeks. We'll preview the home season for Auburn and a countdown to the Plains with Rhett Hobart and Daniel Watkins and Paris Buchanan coming up. And our second podcast in September is with Mayo Sowell. When he played linebacker for Auburn on the 04 team, he was Mayo Sowell. His name is Mayo Sowell, who spent time in prison after his Auburn career. Now is a pastor of a growing church in Atlanta, and recently spent 7 days with the homeless in downtown Atlanta. And he tells a remarkable story. And those are all coming up in the coming weeks on the Talking Tigers podcast. You can find that on War Eagle Plus, auburntigers.com, and wherever you find your podcast weekly, Phillip.
All right, sounds good. Everybody go check it out. It's always a good listen on Mondays. And Andy, I appreciate the time. I look forward when we get to do this again.
My pleasure, Phillip. Have a great day. War Eagle.
All right. Once again, thanks to Andy Burcham for coming on. Had a lot of fun. Talked to Andy last summer. This was a little bit later summer than we did last year, but great having Andy on the show again, talk all things Auburn. And that will be here before you know it on the 29th when they go to play Baylor on the road. All right. To close the show out, I went to Facebook and X and posted as Ask Me Anything, but some football questions. And I did put in there in parentheses, please someone just ask one NFL question. Well, everybody asked the NFL question, so I appreciate it. You doing that. So we're going to close out the show doing that today. And you know what? I was going to give you some news on the future of the show. We'll do that after these questions. We're going to start off with Troy Sadowski, former Georgia tight end, All-American, played in the NFL as well. Will Stetson Bennett take over as QB1 for the Rams? Not this year. But Stafford does have some concerns, but I think Stafford will be the guy this year for the Rams. Jake Martin, what are the odds Aaron Rodgers makes makes it the first 8 games without injury? I think he does, but the Steelers' offense line is not the best in the world. But I think Aaron Rodgers will be good. A big part of why he was such a great quarterback and at times the best quarterback in the NFL was because of his ability to use his feet. I think he got some of that footing back under him toward the end of last year. And this kind of jumps to my next question. Charles McNally, what do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to do this year? He played really well probably the last handful of games or so, or the second half of the year with the Jets. He started looking more like himself, like he was recovering from the Achilles injury. I think we'll see a little bit more of that from Aaron Rodgers this year. I think he gets the Steelers to the playoffs and they win a game. I don't think they go further than that. I do think he'll do that for them. Thomas James offered. Why is the Steelers logo only on one side of the helmet? Tradition. That's all I got to say. Brianna Lewis, how do you play football with nothing but intensity? That's how you play football. Nah, got to tackle folks and just strap them up, play football, have that intensity. That's how you play the game. Drew Crabtree, who leads your Packers in receiving this year? I'm going to throw one out there. I think it's going to be rookie Matthew Golden. Because when you look at the Packers, Jaden Reed is banged up. We'll see what Romeo Dobbs can do. Christian Watson's not going to be there. And Golden has played well. Now, the Jordan Love stuff this week, the surgery on his left hand, his non-throwing hand, for some ligament damage. That's going to knock him out of preseason and practice and everything until they start the regular season. But I think Matthew Golden, rookie, will lead this team in receiving yards. And then this one was over on X. Charlie Smith, who is your QB5 after before? And he mentions Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson. Like I say, that's probably the right 4. I think it's Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts now you got to say he's top 5 in the league. He went to Super Bowl. I mean, I know he has some issues. I mean, he's not great in some areas of the pass game, but the guy's been winning. I think you got to give that to him. So I am going to go with Jalen Hurts as QB5 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the National Football League. And I appreciate you guys all chiming in on those. And I'll respond to those on social media after this podcast goes up. And I want to say this before I close it up, because we're closing up the podcast now. The show, I posted this on Facebook. I haven't really posted on X yet. The Phillip Jordan Show will now be releasing once a week on Fridays. There's multiple reasons for that. I feel like that's a good spot for this show. And that's where we're going to kind of go with it from now on. Just the stuff I've got going on, I can record a couple of interviews or during the week, kind of prepare, just see kind of how the week and the news goes. So, and that's kind of how we're going to go. And during the season, recap any Thursday night games on the show to open, any big news that happened in the world, especially with college football and NFL, whatever, the football world on that show. And then we'll play some guest interviews getting ready for the weekend. So that's going to be kind of like the idea of the show. This one's going around the 40 to 50-minute range, but we may do an hour and a half on some Friday mornings. But that's where the podcast is going to be on YouTube, and I'll post any interviews up as their own individual thing as well. So you'll be seeing that on the show as well. But we're coming at you every Friday. So you'll get the Wiregrass High School football report from me on Monday mornings, and then you'll get the Phillip Jordan Show on Fridays. And of course, we'll have the Jay Kennedy Coach Show coming soon, and also got to be doing those football games. Nice, he's not a legend. But for me, 2 podcasts, the Wiregrass High School football report on Mondays, and then Friday mornings you'll get the Phillip Jordan Show. If something big happens, I may hop in and do like a quick short little video that will go up as a podcast. But a full-on show, you're only getting on Friday. It's going to be very similar to what the format was back in the day when I was with ESPN Dothan doing the sideline review. That's going to kind of be the idea of how the show is going to run from it. Now, I think Friday is a good spot. It'll add consistency. You'll be used to it. It'll upload 7 a.m. on Friday mornings. It also will upload a video on Friday mornings. So it's going to be a lot of fun doing this football, especially in football season. But I think we'll have some good guests. But I'm going to get out of here. It's real late as I am recording this on Thursday night. I hope everybody has a great weekend. There will be preseason football check out the Wiregrass High School Football Report on Monday. And then next Friday, I'll be back with another episode. We are scheduled to be joined by Bill Bender from the Sporting News next week. And I'm trying to work on perhaps another guest for the show as well. But it should be fun. Again, appreciate you checking out the show. Please share it out with all your friends. Tell them why you should be checking out the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. Anyways, I hope everybody has a great weekend. Until next time.